What's going on YouTube? Welcome back to another TPA video, Season 2, Episode 2. Today we are going to be discussing Cincinnati and what to expect from them in the 2021 season. If you didn't catch our video yesterday, we previewed the entire American Conference. This will probably be the only team that we dive in depth with for the AAC. But if you're a fan of Tulsa, Tulane, SMU, ECU, somebody like that, be sure to check out the video we posted yesterday. We cover your team a little bit more in depth. You can see our schedule over here for what to expect the next few days. And nonetheless, we can get into it. Matthew, how's it going, man?
Doing great, brother. Been high on this team for at least a year now, so I know we got a lot to talk about. I'm ready to dive into it.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot to talk about, to say the least. Cincinnati, 9-1 in 2020, finished 6th in FBS, 8th in the final AP poll, won the Eastern Division of the American Athletic Conference, 7-0. Under head coach Luke Fickell, averaged 38 points per game, gave up about 16.8 points per game. Let's see what else we got here. Lost in the Peach Bowl 24-21 against Georgia, who's probably the favorite to win the SEC East this year. 10th out of 128 strength of schedule, or SR. What is SRS?
Oh, that's a good question.
Simple rating system, a rating that takes into account average point differential and strength of schedule. Okay, so they're 10th in SRS, 69th in strength of schedule. Again, that was last year. This year, we were just talking about it in yesterday's video. We are a big fan of this schedule for Cincinnati for a lot of reasons. Why are you so high on Cincinnati, strictly based on their schedule for?
I think this is going to be a true test for their defense. We talked about it in the first video. You're looking at your first 5 weeks. You're playing two top 10, potentially top 15 teams. That being Indiana and Notre Dame. You know, those are perfect games to prove, are you defensive worthy to play in the playoff come January?
Yeah, the biggest thing for Cincinnati last year was they didn't have the quality wins. Georgia would have been a great game for them to say, we tried to tell you, especially after what happened in their game in the semifinal last year. But you have a lot of people coming back. I think he returned 74% of your offense, somewhere in there, kind of middle of the pack in the FBS. Quarterbacks coming back who ran 600 touchdowns. He threw for 2,300 yards, 19 touchdowns. He only turned the ball over 6 times in 10 games. You have a ton of production coming back. Your defense is coming back very strong. Luke Fickell's proven he can be a good coach. He's going to have you in a position to win football games. Very, very high expectations for Cincinnati this year. I think for valid reasons.
Yeah, I mean, you finished last year third pass efficiency. You got 8th in total scoring, 13th in total defense. Stats like that, they don't come easy. And defense in the league we play in now or watch now, it's very unheard of, very rare. So, like you said, high expectations. I think, their offense is still their strongest point going into this year, simply because Desmond Ritter decided to come back, for his senior season, knowing that he probably could have found himself on an NFL roster, which I think coming back this year, praying he stays healthy all year, is going to be big for him in the long run. But I still think, defense is my thing to watch this year, and I'm going to be talking about it all season.
Yeah, I think one guy that you need to keep an eye on who's coming back that a lot of people probably aren't familiar with is Jerome Ford. He was the backup to Dokes last season. I don't know if you know this. He actually played at Alabama. He played 8 games at Alabama before Cincinnati, and then was the backup last year. So this year will be his junior year. He's a redshirt junior. Played 4 games, kept his red shirt, played another 4 as a freshman, and played, I think, all 10 last year for Cincinnati. Ran for about 500 yards, scored 8 times. racked up 8 catches for about 50 yards, and was a solid alibi to Dokes last season. And I think he's going to be the number one guy this year, carry a lot of the load, and be a good partner for Desmond Ridder.
Absolutely. Yeah, you don't get recruited by Alabama if you're not top notch, and for Cincinnati to already be good, and then this guy move in 2 seasons ago, huge. He's into the system now. I'm sure he's really familiar. I'm sure even having Nick Saban for 1 year, I guess, would be like really good for your football IQ. He's bringing that to Cincinnati. I believe he had a huge run against Georgia last year, and I thought, you know what, this guy next year he's going to be something for Cincinnati.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think I kind of remember that. Game log. He had 8 attempts for 97 yards last year. Averaged 12.1 carry. So yeah, I think you're correct on that. He did have that one long run. But getting on into their schedule, they start off the year with the Miami, Ohio Redhawks. Easy win. I think they win that one by at least 3 scores. Home game, 3:30 Eastern. Comment on that one?
Don't lose this game.
Yeah.
Shouldn't, but do not.
This should be a game that you should win by 40 and
make a statement.
Yes, exactly. And then
Murray State, I believe it's the same way.
Yeah, absolutely. Murray State, an FCS team who's not bad. I think they lost to Jacksonville State by 2 or 3 scores last year. And Jacksonville State's a team that's just going to run. A big fan of running. And Cincinnati's not necessarily that way. I think they will run the football, but the way that you pass and with your coming back, you have to win this one by 40.
Yeah. And, too, if they can come out, we said we're going to do a podcast, pretty much every week. And I know we will be talking about Cincinnati probably every week. So these first 2 weeks right here, if they have it clicking coming into Indiana and then having the bye week going into Notre Dame, these 2 games I think are crucial for the next 2.
Yeah, absolutely.
You got things clicking going into those 2 games, you're good. If you're off going to the Indiana game, they're going to lose.
Yeah, absolutely. We talked about how big the bye week would be going from Indiana to on the road at Notre Dame. I think the first 2 games are just as important as the bye week is, because if you're got to use those weeks to get out any kink. But at the same time, you have to find your group early, because if you ain't found your group by Indiana, and Indiana has, because Indiana opens up with the same strength, schedule, quality of opponents in weeks 1 and 2 that you are, because Iowa's good, but they're not that good. They're not on par with how Indiana finished last year and how they played all year last year, especially with Penny coming back. So I mean, like I said, if you're not in that groove going into week 3, going on the road, it's Michael Penny, and then a game that you can to find yourself in the college football playoff in January.
Yep. That's what people say. You're building your ticket from Labor Day weekend. So this is definitely it. And I think Indiana, their first 2 opponents versus Cincinnati's are a whole lot better. So if Indiana has things clicking coming into it after beating Iowa, and who'd you say?
Idaho.
Yeah. Which, Idaho maybe you can argue that, but Iowa for sure is the best team out of the 4 teams being played, for Cincinnati, Indiana. They're going to have things clicking, I'm assuming, is Cincinnati. And if Cincinnati does, I think we could see them beating Indiana.
Yeah,
I think
so
we
too.
said that that'll be the game. I think they lose between Indiana and Notre Dame. But even a close loss, you should still be on the ticket, depending on how you finish the season.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's one of the games that, just looking ahead, Indiana's probably going to be a favorite, so I'd probably go ahead and take the over on Cincinnati to cover the spread. That's me. If I can put money on it right now, I would. but don't think that bet's going to open up till that week.
This is not financial advice. This is just personal
right.
opinions.
This is just what I would do. Better when I'm not. So the next week you have a bye week. Preparing for Notre Dame, like we kind of mentioned, and again, I think this is a game that realistically, no matter how Indiana plays out, I think they're probably going to beat Notre Dame. Notre Dame of young quarterback, whoever it might be. Then you have, it's just like Indiana. If they blow out Cincinnati, I think the conversation is going to be okay. Cincinnati's not as good as we thought they were, but then it's going to be okay. Indiana might be a lot better than we thought they were. So it kind of goes both ways. Like you could have a game that's really close, and both teams getting good press from it, I guess. Build their resume off of a close loss, no matter who you are. And then if Indiana blows them out, then it's like, all right, they are who we thought they were. Cincinnati is not. And then on the flip side of that, if Cincinnati blows out Indiana, it's like, okay, Cincinnati is the real deal, or Indiana's not.
Yeah. You got to think, too, outside of Texas A&M, which I don't think the playoff committee would have wanted to see Alabama and A&M play again. So that's why I'm saying, like, you think about it this way. Cincinnati's sitting there and they're thinking, oh, this is the team that, regardless of losing players or not, it's still the team culture. This is the team that got in over us. So you got to think there's going to be a little more fire coming into it, thinking, hey, maybe we do have something to prove. This is a good game to do it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's at Notre Dame, right?
Yeah, it's in.
It'll be huge.
Touchdown in the background of that one. But nonetheless, I mean, I'm not big on Notre Dame, man. Like, especially after losing Ian Book, and the way you played against Alabama last year. Like, I don't see a way when Notre Dame comes out on top if Cincinnati's at full. I think there's too much talent coming back. There's too much upside to the Cincinnati team. I mean, the only people I see beating Cincinnati outside of Indiana is UCF, and they play them 2 weeks after the game. I just don't really see Notre Dame winning unless something happens with Cincinnati and they just shit the bed and don't show up coming after a loss to Indiana or something like that.
Yeah, for sure. And in the words of Lil Baby, they got something to prove. So, and that 5-week stretch, I guess, if you count the bye week, or 6-week stretch, 5-game stretch, from Indiana, Notre Dame, not really Temple, but on into UCF. That right there is their ticket. If you ask me, that right there is their playoff ticket. I think if they can win this year after doing what they did last year, I think they can get in. I really do.
Yeah.
But you cannot lose, 2 of those 3 games.
No,
you really can't. You can't beat Indiana, Notre Dame, and lose to UCF either. But you know what? Depending on how good UCF is, but that little 6-week stretch is going to be really fun to keep up with.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Is it really? We just kind of skipped the Temple game. Cincinnati's going to blow them out. Getting into UCF and technically week 7, 6th game for Cincinnati on October 16th. UCF's schedule is piss poor. Their only quality opponents are Boise State and UCF and Cincinnati. Cincinnati, they're going to have to play twice. So for those reasons, if you're Cincinnati, like you said, you have to win 2 out of those 3. I think a loss to UCF wouldn't hurt you as bad as long as you beat them in the conference championship. Now, if you lose to them and UCF just implodes this year, that's a different story. But UCF runs the table like they should, finishes 11-1, undefeated, heading into the conference championship. I think you can afford to lose one of those games, like we mentioned. And I think as long as you beat Notre Dame and win another one, I think you're good. I think if you beat Notre Dame but lose to Indiana, then you're kind of at the hands of UCF whether you win or not. Because UCF could be really good. You beat them twice, you're in. Could be mediocre. You split, probably out. Both you're out. Or even if you win, but UCF is 6-6 at the end of the year, then that's not going to help your case either.
Yeah, I agree. And, that's definitely the meat of their schedule right there, stopping October 16th. But see, then They turn right around. They play ground and pound team Navy. It's a defensive test. They turn right around after that and play Tulane, who we had just talked about in the previous video, offensively really good. Then turn right around and play Tulsa. Those 3 games too are going to be tough. I don't think it'll be near as tough as the previous ones we just talked about. But defensively, that's coming off of that 6-week stretch. That's going to be. I mean, that's going to be a tough one.
Yeah, absolutely. Navy, it's a road game, so picking up a win there would be very good. But also, if your defense just shuts them down, that's gonna all these different factors that the committee takes into account for when they decide between Cincinnati and Texas A&M and Notre Dame, things like that. Just little things like, hey, they have 4 road victories against quality opponents, or in tough environments to play in. Then you have, if you give up 21 points to Navy and still win by 40, it's still gave up 40 games that did nothing but run the ball in October. This ain't like it's December or something where it's cold as hell. This is late October. It's still 60, 70, feels good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Navy's a good game. Oh, it's 11 a.m. 12 o'clock noon, depending on where you live. So that game, I think that game will be pretty fun to watch. It'll be a true test, especially coming off, like you said, the meet schedule. Kind of see just how good they really are, and as long as they don't slip. If they slip, I'm expecting Tulane or Tulsa. I think you said Tulsa earlier yesterday. I think the next 2 games following Navy are probably the 2 trap games that Cincinnati has to make it through.
Yeah, I think they're 2 conference games. I guess could even be conference games of the year. Would be Cincinnati's going to be in it. It's just depending on who they're playing, and I think it'll either be UCF or Tulsa. But I like the way their schedule is laid out. I don't even know who comes up with schedules or how it works necessarily, but the way it's laid out for them is beautiful because you got those 2 games we talked about to figure your shit out before Indiana, first 2 games of the year. Then you get to the meet all the way, you get to Tulsa, and then you can finish out. Say you're sitting in a position to be in a New Year's Six or, on the playoff ticket. You got 3 weeks right there where you should do nothing but focus on all the things that you didn't do right in the season playing South Florida. SMU will be a good team, good game. They should win. And then East Carolina. They should easily finish out 3-0. How are they going to be getting to that point is the question.
Yeah, and even with the last 3 games of the year, like you said, you still have that next week is the AAC championship.
Mm-hmm.
You're gonna play UCF again. I don't see playing anybody else that could give you a run for your money. If you play Houston, play Tulane, Tulsa, SMU, Memphis, somewhere like that, I think by that point, 12 games deep. If you're sitting there with a loss to UCF, to me, you lost to UCF in the early season. I know it's week 6, but it's still early. I still consider week 6 kind of early. Once you get to about week 8, that's when you're in that middle of the season. Because you look at Alabama last year and their defense, they really didn't even find their groove until like week 5 or 6. Defensively, they gave up 40 points to Ole Miss in week 3. So, you don't play Houston, you don't play Memphis. So I could see one of those 2 teams making it to the championship for those. It's like I think Tulsa went 6-0 in 2019 in conference play. But I just don't see. It's got to be Houston, Memphis, or UCF, and the only reason it's Houston or Memphis is because they don't play Cincinnati.
Yep, I agree. And Houston, like I said, they are my sleeper team. I still think it'll be UCF, the 2 team. But like you said, really rare chance they play one of them again. And being Tulsa and SMU so late in the season, I don't think they're going to play them again. UCF definitely is the team to have our eye on, at least from yours and my standpoint. UCF is a team we got our eye on for Cincinnati.
Yep. I know we kind of touched on all these different games, but just in case you missed it, the final 5 games of their schedule is at Tulane, Tulsa, at USF, SMU, at ECU before you get to the championship. Now, like we said, those are all games that two or three could be trapped at that early late October. The last three should be relatively easy, and then after that you have the championship, and then you have the playoffs of the bowl game. You touched on a minute ago this schedule, not knowing how they're made up or whatever. If you look at it, I mean, there's teams that have games scheduled in 35.
Yeah.
So, like, whoever made this schedule somehow miraculously made this perfect year for all these games to line up. You know what I mean? Like, this is fate.
Yeah, especially a non-conference.
It's got to be fate. Like, Cincinnati's going to the playoffs. It's got to happen. Because 10 years ago when they scheduled Indiana and scheduled Notre Dame for the same year, they're not sitting there thinking, okay, we're going to be 9-1 the year before. We're going to have a great coach. Our quarterback's going to be one of the top in the country. Heisman coming back. This is the year. Like, we got to do it this year or we're done. You know what I mean? Like, fate set this up for Cincinnati, I feel like. So,
health, man. I hope, the team stays healthy, especially Desmond Ridder.
I think Ridder was number. Should have it. I didn't. Guess I didn't look that up for him. I think I mentioned earlier that Dylan Gabriel is number 4, quarterback by PFF. Grayson McCall from Coastal 7. I don't remember where Desmond fell in that. I feel like he was kind of disrespected. But.
Yeah, and that'll be a good thing. Coming into the year too, because he still has a lot to prove in terms of if he wants to play, after college.
Yeah.
But in terms of solidifying himself as one of the top college quarterbacks in the country based off of last year, I think he's got it.
Yeah, I think so too. Final prediction for Cincinnati. Record, do they finish? Do they make playoffs? What do you think?
Let's see. What are we back to 12-game schedule?
Yeah, 12-game schedule.
I'm gonna give them 11-1. I'm gonna give them a loss to either Indiana or Notre Dame. Realistically, conference champs, New Year's Six Bowl.
I like it.
I want them to be in the playoff if they have that season, or if they're undefeated. Which, if they're undefeated, there's no reason they shouldn't be in the playoff.
Yeah.
Unless you have however many teams undefeated else, and we're not going to. But realistically, I'm gonna say 11-1. Conference champs, New Year's Six Bowl.
That's kind of what I'm thinking. I'm thinking 11-1, make the conference championship. Depending on who they play, I could see them maybe slipping up, losing a shootout. It's not going to be like they get shut down and get beat. Like, it's going to be like they lose a shootout in the conference championship. Still making New Year's Six Bowl. Still making New Year's Six Bowl and end up that one. So you're looking at that'd be 13-1, 12-2, somewhere in there. So you're looking at a very, very high quality season. I agree with you. The loss to Indiana, picking up a win, named UCF in week 7. I could see UCF developing and beating them again in the conference championship. But nonetheless, they may never play each other again. Yeah, I think I'll stick with you. 13-1, 12-2. Conference championship.
Defense, man. How is the defense going to hold up this year? I hope they do the same as last year.
Yeah, I only lost the 2 safeties. Everybody else is coming back. So, Cincinnati's perfect. Like I said, fate set this season up for Cincinnati. They just got to capitalize.
It's theirs to lose. I said in the previous video, AAC is theirs to lose.
Absolutely. But that'll wrap up this Cincinnati preview. As you can see on the schedule, we have Conference USA preview coming out tomorrow. We talk about UAB, Marshall, Buffalo. I think Buffalo's in Conference USA. So I think that one's going to be a little fun. It's kind of close for us. We're about an hour and a half north of UAB. Got a couple of friends. Yeah, we interviewed their freshman quarterback coming in. Can't remember. Dylan Maratra, I think. Dylan M. I probably botched his last name, but got a couple of friends down there in Birmingham. So excited to cover Conference USA and UAB next. Matthew, anything you'll say before we close it out?
Praying for good health for the Bearcats, man. I hope to see you on a New Year's Six Bowl.
Absolutely. If you guys enjoyed the video, please be sure to leave a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button. We'll be coming out with all kinds of Cincinnati content throughout the season. If you anything to cover specifically, comment sections there, and then we'll also have some Cincinnati and AAC guys available throughout the season as well. Just be sure our Discord for updates on that. Like I said, if you enjoy, please be sure to hit that subscribe button. See you guys tomorrow with Conference USA